Hello, hello. This is Kim Ades from Frame of Mind Coaching, and you have just joined the Frame of Mind Coaching podcast. Today, I have with me a wonderful guest. Her name is Tricia Andreassen. Did I say it right?
You did, Kim.
Welcome. So, as we were kind of sitting in the green room chatting, Tricia and I have been friends on Facebook for years and years and years and years. And when she came on, and I've been following her and kind of tuning into everything she's posting and excited about some of the things she's working on, I said to her, I'm so happy to finally meet you kind of face to face. She said, actually, we met. So Tricia, take it away. Where the heck did we meet?
Remind me. We met at the Real Estate Riz Media Conference. I believe it was 2006 or 2007. Somewhere around there. And I was a speaker there. You were a speaker there. And we met in the lobby and we just started chatting. And you were saying, I think we talked about your life and
I totally remember it all.
And then you called me, which was awesome. You called me, and at that time I was a CEO of a marketing company. So I was very front and center. And I think I just holistically shared with you about just the stress that I had, and you had asked me, do you journal? And I was like, actually, yes, I had written since I was in 4th grade, but I had forgotten. And I started journaling during that time, and then things just continued to unlock. And in 2013, I picked up a paintbrush for the very first time. After my business book was in the publisher's hands and I was burnt out, I was like, I'm gonna paint. I don't know why. And I went to the store and picked up my paints. And a year later, they were featured in a gallery. And then I started doing mixed media to heal myself as I was going through some personal trauma from some family memories of abuse. And the art became a way for me to give affirmations to myself. Mm-hmm. So I would be writing in my journals and things. I probably have a whole book I'm sitting on that just called Letters to My Father, which would be like my heavenly father, because I love my dad. Don't get me wrong. He passed away in November, and we went through levels of forgiveness and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. But for me, I remember a big shift for me, because a lot of people ask, how did you get out of that real estate space so specifically, and why, when you were at the top of your
I want to kind of go back, because you and I were both in the real estate space. So let's kind of just fill people in. You owned a marketing company, and you were providing marketing services, products, probably, maybe newsletters, that kind of thing, and the real estate industry. So your clients were agents, or were they brokers?
They were actually mega teams. So we had like the #1 Keller Williams agent team internationally.
Okay.
We had over 50% of those listed on the Wall Street Journal were our clients. Mm-hmm. I was in the 5-figure range on keynote speaking.
Wow. And what did you talk about?
On marketing strategies. And I was the go-to. I was literally like the surgeon of lead generation and marketing and how to get your message out and all of that. And it wasn't until you're actually interviewing me probably for the first time on this particular part. It wasn't until 2015 when I started really listening to my inner voice, mm-hmm. knowing there had been signs there, but knowing that it was time for me to step out. I had a huge opportunity that would have made me a multimillionaire. Okay. And I turned it down. And I knew that my calling was shifting to reach the inner heart. And I believe it was because, John Maxwell, Kim, says you can't teach what you don't go through. Mm-hmm. And all of that was a journey, because I loved doing pieces of marketing and helping people, but also I was finding my significance in being enough for my clients, where my whole identity and self-worth was wrapped up in how they perceived me.
Right.
And
And you know what? The real estate industry is a very interesting place. I spent many, many years in it, and it's both wonderful and troubling all at the same time.
yes,
Yeah, like it's just a very, in a way, it's a very small industry filled with a bazillion uh, people, but it is a very small industry. So you decided then not to sell your company, or you had an opportunity, you
I
didn't
did
take
sell
it.
it.
Oh,
I,
you did. You
I
sold your company.
yeah. Can you want to know what happened?
Yeah.
I won't say who I sold it to, but
Okay.
you can appreciate this. I had started my company from the bonus room in my house when Jordan was 1 year old.
Your
It was
son.
my passion. I grew it 15 years to 7 figures. We had clients. Our brand was number one, top in the market. You know, I'd done the real estate column for Riz Media and spoke all over the country. I thought I was selling to the right people based on their level of technology and strategy. And they decided to default, and I lost everything.
Oh my goodness.
And we spent a lot of money with attorneys. And I was told that they were like the McDonald's and I was like the little guy, and they would just basically squash me with attorney fees.
Wow.
And it was so hard that literally me journaling,
Hmm.
praying, and declaring victory over my marriage. And during that time, that same summer, Jordan had his first episode of, it wasn't like the official suicide attempt, but it was very close.
Okay, so you're
And
you're
then,
throwing a lot at us here. Hold on. Let's slow it down. I
yeah,
definitely want to talk about your son. I
yeah.
mean, in fact, I think that was like my compelling reason for reaching out, because I really wanted to talk about that. But before we talk about that, so you had this business, you thought you had a buyer, you closed the deal, but they ended up not paying you. And you ended up with essentially an empty sack of nothing.
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, so what, I mean, again, hold off on your son. What did you do with that? You couldn't go to lawyers. They
We
said
did, you know,
we're gonna out lawyer you. So then what did you do? Was there any recourse? How did you rebound? What did you do next?
um, one thing that I did is I got in, and I have chills even telling you this, because I got into doing, I got on Pinterest and I started looking at mixed media and some things like that, and how to basically put things together. This is an example of literally the month that our deal fell through. And it's a little canvas and it's papers,
Mm-hmm.
and the word says discover. And then it was like be an anchor.
Right.
And then, but there's treasures, and
So it's
it's
kind of
like,
like a vision board.
yeah, sail your ship, have faith, enjoy the ride. So I kept doing these art pieces during that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would get up in the morning very early at like 4:30, 5 in the morning, where it was completely quiet. And I had basically a ritual where I could light my candles and I could journal and really stay in that private space. And I would basically, I didn't realize it at the time to the level that I am now, but I was basically praying and saying, God, come up with a victory, and sometimes I think that's one thing, is we have to release the way that a prayer or a miracle happens. Sometimes in our mind, we'd be like, oh yeah, we won the lawsuit and all of this and everything, and that's a done deal. But I have to jump forward and just tell you this, that I'm sitting here today, and we had the reschedule happen.
Yeah.
A year ago today is when my son had his um, suicide scenario and went to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And so how supernatural that you and I are talking today. The things that I learned through losing our company were literally the healing tools that helped me in my son's journey. So I believe that whether it's the universe, however anyone wants to look at it, I know I'm a person of faith, and I've learned to stand in that more, and be comfortable. And if people don't like me, I'm totally fine with it, you know, because when I've gone through, I can only go through my story, and literally it's nothing short of supernatural that my husband and I were able to come through that. We had to sell our house, downsize. My husband was so distraught. He was like, we're just going to rent. I don't even want to buy. I don't know if we're going to stay married. It literally like almost crushed us.
So you lose your business, basically. There's no money coming in, and you turn to starting to create art and journaling. And at that point, how old was your son when all this stuff went down?
That was 2016, and he just turned 19. So
at the time
16, yeah.
So it was 2016. Oh, he was 15 years old in 2016.
Correct.
And then you said he made an attempt at suicide. When was that? And what did he do? And how did you find out?
So I'm so glad that actually we're able to talk about this, because a lot of parents don't necessarily realize the ramifications of their kids being in their rooms and gaming. I have to just take ownership and say, when I was growing my company, I mean, we were interactive with Jordan, baseball and basketball and things like that. But I believe that in my stress of running my company, you know, I would be like, I'm just going to go get a bottle of wine and I'm going to sit out on the outdoor patio, and Jordan would go game, you know, Xbox and Roblox and Minecraft and all of that. And he went through bullying in 6th grade, and the first time he got bullied, the kid said, why don't you go home and kill yourself? I didn't find that out until the summer after, but his friend called him and said, hey, Jordan, why don't you come out and, you know, hang out? And a year later, we were in the backseat of the car on a camping trip, and he looked at his friend Brooks and said, you know, you saved me that day, because I was laying in bed trying to think of how, because he had been bullied and teased, and he had gotten embarrassed in front of this kid. So he reclused more and more into gaming. And gaming is something that they don't have. First of all, back then, when we even looked for help in that regard, because we knew he was addicted to gaming. On the bus, he had been exposed to pornography on the bus, and some things like that. And these are things that are not talked about, and I wish to goodness sakes they would.
When you say on the bus, you mean on the school bus, on the way to school? Okay.
And so, you know, we had systems and family and router things in place, but kids are innovative and they know how to get around it. So he continued to game and so forth. So by the time he was 15, he was constantly gaming, and I had no idea to the level until that morning, and it was Mother's Day morning, actually. So we said, we have family in, you know, you've played your game, we want to turn it off. We're going to go kayaking today, and we're going to have family breakfast. And Jordan said no. And so Kurt quietly went upstairs and got the laptop and unplugged it and put it away and said, we're going to have family time. And the other side of Jordan just leashed out and started saying things like, I hate you, and, you know, why do you do this to me? All I want to do is do this. And I was actually in a sling from shoulder surgery just 2 weeks prior. And I say that because I couldn't run mother's intuition. So we went around the kitchen and went to the garage and flew out the back, and then he walked. And so through the French doors, I could see out, and I was like, I think he's holding something in his hand. And my intuition, and which is so important to know how to dial into, and that's why I'm a fan of journaling, is I said, Kurt, I think you need to go out there to the truck and check on Jordan. And he was like, okay. And, you know, he's talking to his sister, and it was probably less than 10 seconds. I said, Kurt, go now. So Kurt went out there. Jordan was in the front seat, and he had taken a bottle of bleach, and it was sitting in between his legs. thank goodness he didn't do anything with it, but the cap was loose and he didn't answer the question, but he was so angry. He was angry at a person. I can't believe that person did this to me. And so he just had a lot of rage. So the next day we called his therapist, and
What did you think he was going to do with the bleach? You think he was going to drink it?
And that was very scary.
Mm-hmm.
So he went somewhere for 4 days. At that time, insurance companies had nothing under the age of 18 for levels of addiction, for like internet gaming addiction. And over 18 would classify for alcohol or drugs or whatever. It's crazy. We could have gotten more help if our son would have been addicted to drugs, which he's not. He's very rigid about that. Yeah. He's like, no. He's a very, very smart guy. ADHD was a combination. So if it wasn't for Art getting me through that, and also I became a part of the John Maxwell organization, and some of those people that I met are like my family today. And that's really what helped.
They're like my family too. I know a lot of them.
And they're just such giving, loving, soulful people. And I just have even chills telling you that, because so many of them were there and prayed with me during that and was like, we're here for you. During that time, I actually wrote a lot. And I have several books out on resilience and on hope. And so, you know, again, I look at, it can be hard, but we have to find a gift in the situation, the bad situation. I could say, you know, Jordan, you know, got taken to the hospital a year ago today, and oh my goodness, I went through that and so forth and all of that. But what I can say is that I stand in such joy knowing that my son is happy, he's healthy, he's working today. We played a board game last weekend. He doesn't use a laptop or a computer. And he was saying just within the last 2 weeks that when he and Lydia have kids and they come and play on our property here, because by the way, we now have our dream house, literally. And I wrote that in the background, manifested. And that's why you're hearing squeaking or whatever, it's the birds singing. I'm literally in the nestled of the trees. He said, yeah, and when we have our kids, they won't have any Xbox or games here.
So, like, when you saw him in this state, like ready to drink bleach, what did you do? What did you say? Like, what was your instinctive reaction? Like, what are you doing? Did you get mad? Like, what?
He just knew how
reaction.
Yeah, he was like, his anger was off the wall. And what's really sad about that summer, Kim, is how they let him go within 4 days, saying that, you know, he was great, perfect. We knew we had a challenge. We could get no one to help. I am not kidding you. Here's the thing, Jordan didn't want the help. So he was so smart on how to play the game that we could not get him into a program that could help him. I remember calling different things, and it would be like a $48,000 program on like a wilderness boot camp and things like that. So we got settled here in the house. He went through therapy for a while. It was very difficult because here's the thing, when someone is going through something like that, you can't force them. Or it's not gonna work. You can nudge them and get them into a place. And that's why I wanna fast forward to the official more suicide attempt that happened last year, because what happened is we kept trying in the therapy and helping him with ADHD and techniques and so forth. It was an endless battle. You know, this could be another podcast of the emotional and abuse that I went through. It was awful.
Because he was so angry.
He was so angry and he was addicted to gaming. So whenever
So how did the anger show itself? Like, was he yelling at you, swearing at you, throwing things at you?
yeah, I hate you. On the day driving him to school, he was like, how about if I hit you right now?
Wow. And how big of a role did ADHD play in all of this? Like, was he on any type of medication?
He had been on medication, and then whenever he was in middle school, he went off of it. And he was like, I don't like being on it because, it changes me and I'm not as social. And then he got to the point where, it was just like an argument that, it was this power play. And it was very sad because we would see moments of the real Jordan, the wonderful kid that we just loved with all of our heart.
Mm-hmm.
But slowly we kept losing him. And in 2017 is when he had said, how about if I just hit you right now?
Mm-hmm.
We sent him to camp that summer. He was very angry, but we sent him to the camp that he had always gone to, which is a wonderful Christian camp in North Carolina. And he was very angry because here's why I found out, because he was actually king of like 14,000 members, like Game of Thrones. He was as a CEO and running an organization.
Wow.
That's how brilliant he is. But it was literally taking his life by doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was getting all of this significance and leadership and power, but in an unhealthy environment. Mm. And so when he went to camp, he was gone. It gave us a little bit of a breathing space for a couple of weeks. He came back and he was like, I needed to go. He says, I broke down there and I gave, my life to the Lord and so forth. However, he started doing Miracle Morning. But this is the thing about internet addiction, is that when it is become a habit, if you will, right? And it's your go-to, like sugar or alcohol. Even the best intentions, if you're not ready to partner it with some counseling, it won't work. And he wasn't ready to go to counseling. So he was trying to do Miracle Morning and he really had the intention and so forth. And he slowly got back into it. And people are going to listen to this and say, well, why didn't you take it off the property? We did. In fact, when he didn't graduate because he snuck things back in because he needed his computer to do his online classes and his mobile, I even put all the teen restrictions and all that, but then, oh, Mom, I can't get into this app. I mean, you name it, it happened.
Right.
When he found out he wasn't going to graduate on time because he didn't finish his Spanish, he then put his hands around my neck. Now, I tell you that because then I called crisis intervention, where they have a mobile crisis unit. Mm-hmm. This is not to depress a parent. This is to help a parent. Mm-hmm. They went and met him at the school with me. They recommended outside counseling. Even though he put his hands on my neck and I was shaking the day before. So, a month later is when we took the internet out of the house again because he was out of school. Mm-hmm. He went upstairs and his girlfriend said, I think we have to worry. Check on Jordan, please. Kurt went and checked on him. Jordan said, leave me alone. Thank goodness his girlfriend saved his life because I said, do you think I should call 911? She said, yes. I called 911. The police came in. They went outside the door. Jordan began to cry. And they were trained, thank the Lord, they were trained in these type of situations. And they said, son, would you like to go and get help? And he broke down in tears and he said, yes. Mm-hmm. That was a year ago today. But I share that because I had to reach out so many times and so much of the system failed us. But because he was 18 then, mm-hmm. we had more resources for help.
So what was he doing in his room? Had he tried to take his life again? Like, what was going on?
So here's the weird thing. My intuition had said to take all the knives out of the house.
Mhm.
This is hard. So we took all the knives out of the house, and it was Saturday morning. And my little voice said, you see that little turquoise paring knife? You've taken all the other knives out of the house. Shouldn't you take that one out? And I went, oh, Jordan's been really good in a better place and a good mood and so forth.
Mhm.
We're just running to the store. We'll be fine. And I closed the door to the cabinet. So we ran errands. It was when we came back that a conversation went on between Jordan and Kurt about internet. And Kurt basically turned it off. And Jordan got very angry. And then that's when he went to his room.
Mhm.
So after the police had left, I thought, okay, he was just upset and so forth. Jordan did not want to see us at the hospital. So we waited for over 8 hours, not hearing anything.
Mm.
He was over 18, so I couldn't do anything. I was laying in bed, Kim, and my little voice again spoke into me and said, I wonder if you should go check and see where that knife is located. And I was like, huh. So I got up out of bed, I went into the kitchen, and the knife wasn't there. So my little voice says, why don't you go up to his room? So I went up to his room, and I shook the covers, and I lifted up his pillow, and under the pillow was the knife and a letter that said, I love you. This is not your fault. I'm sorry. I just can't do this anymore.
Wow.
So we found him just in time.
So was he cutting himself? Had he cut himself at that point?
No, literally, we literally just had caught him in time.
Mhm.
He was at the hospital on the psychiatric ward for 7 days.
Mhm.
And then through our Aetna insurance, we found a residential facility in Florida. And the hardest thing was that we said, you can't come home. That was hard. We knew, though, that if he came home, that he would not get better. And so he was like, you're forcing me. And we're like, Jordan, we love you and we want you to get better. This is not normal for you. And we don't want you to go through what you're feeling. And so they approved him and he went there.
Mhm.
And through that summer, there was a lot of other little hoops and all of that I went through. I can tell you that I cried enough to burst a blood vessel in my eye. Here's the gift. Here's the gift. I started doing art more and more, started teaching myself acrylic pouring, using an airbrush, all of these things. And the paintings were all over my front porch. And my sister was like, even if you just get a little shop to get yourself out of your house, because I was just battling that depression and the level of grief.
Mhm.
And I rented a little studio. And before I knew it, people were coming into my shop and all of that. And I'm telling you, go find your happy that you see, like when I post, that helped save my life. And I know it saved Jordan in the meantime, because I was able to be the mom and the wife that I needed to be to stand in the gap for him and also be attentive to my husband.
So you needed to be freed of your business so that you could give this all of your attention to.
Yeah. In 2015, I know you're going to be like, girl, are you serious? Like, this is more than one podcast. But in 2000, I have to say this because this is why I know things happen for a reason. In 2015, I was coaching some of the largest real estate teams in the world. I gave them their money back and said, I can't coach right now. My dad had admitted to sexual abuse that I could not remember, but I knew I needed to ask him. And I knew I needed to go into healing during that. And that's when the art and things like that help. During that time, I was also battling a son with severe ADHD and gaming addiction at the same time.
Wow.
People did not know what I was going through because they saw me as the public media personality doing.
You got to do your thing, right?
Thing. And what I realized is that I needed to focus on me. That's when I got my golden. If you've seen me take pictures of Gabby girl, I had an angelic experience during that time. I can't explain it. I never had one like it again. And I really felt like it was an angel beside me telling me to write and to deliver messages and just give hope. And that's when I got my dog, Gabriella. And she's like a version of a therapy dog. And it prepared me emotionally for the level that Jordan was going to go through. And I'm stronger today from it.
So I have a couple of questions because, number one is like, first of all, you're saying to me, Jordan is in a good place now. He's connected to you. He's healthy. He's happy.
He is.
Not a gamer right now.
Nope.
Close with his sister, sounds like.
Yeah, he's got his girlfriend who's just incredibly amazing.
We love her.
Yeah, we do love her. She's actually written in books co-beside me. And so she was able to become a best-selling author at age 16.
Wow.
He took ownership while he was there at Destination Hope. And there were a lot of drug addicts there and schizophrenia and ADHD and so forth. And I believe he began to really see through another lens of the life that he had been given. I mean, because a lot of people didn't have married parents and a home and all of that. And they were like, what are you doing here? You're like a golden boy or whatever they would say.
Yeah.
But what he realized was the pain that he had been carrying of anger, of being bullied. And also we didn't realize that I'm looking down because I'm having a process. We would say, when he was little, we would say, Jordan, are you peeing? Right? Because he'd go, bong, 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 with it out his medicine, right? We had said it like in a jovial or joking way or not picking on him, but he took it that I'm different and my friends know that I have ADHD.
Right.
And
so is he getting treated right now for ADHD? I'm just curious, like, is he on medication and he's taking care that regularly, or is that off the table?
So he went back on ADHD medicine. He went on antidepressives and he went on anti-anxiety medicine and was on that for a period of time and in counseling for a period of time. But just recently, they slowly weaned him off of all of the medicines. In December, he started getting sick and having numbness in his hands and feet. And he had to see a neurologist and he had to have a CAT scan and an MRI to rule out if there was any brain tumors or an infection in his brain. And so the neurologist said, there are some side effects to this medicine that you're on. And he says, so we really need to try to wean you off and then retest you to make sure that you don't have MS. So during that time, Jordan decided to take that route. He was like, Mom, it's miserable. I can't function with these side effects. And so he still does like his therapy and his activities, but he's off of his medicine.
Okay, so I want to just turn my attention back to you for a moment.
Sure.
What were the keys in your ability to live through this? What sounds like, a multitude, not just one nightmare, but a compounded nightmares, plural. So what allowed you to live through it and come to today?
Okay, so I have a book out there called The Seven Keys to Spiritual Growth. It's on Amazon and it's an ebook, so it's really inexpensive. But what I'll do is I'll do my best holistically just to share what tools helped me.
Yeah.
Number one, is that okay?
Yep.
Number one is I got myself a handwritten journal, and I intentionally every morning wrote, I wrote them to God because I needed to write to somebody.
That is why we invite people to journal with
Yeah,
us.
I was
We're
just
not
like,
God, but we're big fans of journaling.
yeah.
And we
So I had
always,
to write to somebody, like,
mm,
and I did do things. Dear Tricia, you made it through yesterday. I am so proud of you. You showed whatever. And so in my coaching stuff, I'll do like journaling prompts with art and stuff. But so I had a journal that I could have with me. The next tool I had for me was a Bible. Because what I did is I would go to Google and I would do feeling alone plus Bible scripture.
mm-hmm,
I went to Google and I would find those little sayings. And it's so funny because even if somebody is not a Bible person, they don't even realize that some of their favorite proverbs are actually in there. So it was like, let your light shine. And I was like, okay, I will let my light shine. How do I do that? And I would unpack that. I had a favorite pen that I would write with. I know that's really corny, but I did. I had my favorite coffee mug that would anchor me. So I would have my coffee and I would do that. And then I would keep myself moving forward. Even if I were really, really down and I wanted to sleep, I would say, what is one thing that I can do today? What is one thing I can do for myself today? And I was like, you know what? I can color a little bit today.
Okay.
Because when you go through a level of grief, man, and the grief is not a death where it's so final. I had to grieve like my son didn't get to go to prom. I had to grieve that my son didn't walk the graduation.
Well, that he threatened to hit you. That's
all of those things. I had to grieve the picture perfect of what we'd love our children's lives to look like. I had to grieve that. And so I found something as a hobby. So that is a key. If it's a camera, if it's gardening and going to Lowe's and getting some flowers and just doing a few pots, if it's coloring, if it's journaling. My husband actually got a palette contraption thing and he
with the thumb.
Palettes, and he made palette signs. It's something therapeutic that you don't feel responsible to do, but it helps you. Otherwise, you sleep, eat, or just want to sit in front of the TV and veg out. And you've got to do something that works your brain and your spirit at the same time. I can't stress that enough because it saved me. And I see Jordan, he's done that now. He came back. He was like, oh, I'm into, stretching and doing this every morning. And I've learned, and he, to fix the Game of Thrones kind of idea, because he loves history, he started getting into drawing his own historical maps and the names of countries and stuff like that. So, actually, for Christmas, he gave Lydia a hand-drawn map, and it had little secret words in it of like their meetings and their love and how he had gone through and he had actually an island on there called Destination Hope.
So Lydia is his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so for him to have some of those tools that he's used, that's just really cool.
Okay, so one last question as we're wrapping up the end of this podcast.
Yeah.
As you've been through so much, what's one lesson, one key lesson that you want to share with our listeners? Like, what do you want people to walk away with when they're confronting any type of adversity, whether it's their kids who are addicted to their games, or their kids who are being bullied, or, you know, something's happening at work, or, you know, the partnership goes south, whatever it is. What is the recommendation you have?
The lesson I would love for them to step into is it's okay to forgive yourself. We beat ourselves up and we say, I did the wrong thing. Even in this podcast, when I said there's going to be people out there that says, why didn't you take that away? Or why didn't you do that? And, you know, all of a sudden we go, well, we're not enough, or we did it wrong, or we didn't hold our boundaries. The lesson we have to really embody and practice. And if you need somebody to help you through forgiveness, that's, you know, I want you to search through that, because the lesson that I learned was true forgiveness, forgiving others because they're in the moment of where they are. Jordan didn't mean those things, and that's not a representation of his identity. Mm-hmm. He is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person. And I had to forgive myself instead of beating myself up that I failed. I sold my company to the wrong person. I let my clients down. I should have not allowed Evergaming into my house to begin with her son. You know, all these things that you can go down, I should have, or whatever, is practice. I forgive myself.
I imagine that there were times when you didn't even like your son. Like, I imagine that could happen. You have to forgive yourself for some of those harder feelings too.
Yeah. And that's why forgiving not only yourself, but forgiving other people, you go in and out of it. But when you make it a focal point of saying, I choose to forgive blank, because that is a wonderful journal prompt today. I choose to forgive blank because blank.
Guys, write that down. Write that down. That's a good journaling prompt. And if you want to fill it out and answer it and send it to us, please do. My email address is kim@frameofmindcoaching.com. And you know what? CC Trish. How do we reach you?
Oh, and Kim, I just absolutely love you. There was no accident that we met all those years ago and have stayed connected. People can reach me at unstoppablewarrior.com. There's a contact button there, and they can just write me.
Amazing, amazing.
By the way, that lady gave me the domain name. Her husband had passed away in the World Trade Center, and we talked, and she was like, I'm going to give you this domain name. So everything has a purpose.
Amazing.
When we step into forgiveness and we start living from that mindset, literally joy starts bubbling forward, and peace starts coming like you've never known it. It's just really awesome. It's really cool.
So Tricia, I want to say thank you for spending this time with us, for being so open, so transparent, so vulnerable, for being so willing to share some of the hardest, really hardest moments and experiences of your life. Like, you have given us a gift today, and on a personal level, I want to thank you. I don't think it's always easy to be that transparent, to be that open, and you've definitely set the standard very, very high, and I appreciate that. So thank you. And please reach out to Trish with any feedback, with any comments that you might have about this podcast, and reach out to me with your journaling answers. What are you willing and ready to forgive? Thank you, Trish. And Tricia, how do I keep calling you Trish?
That's okay. That's how my name evolved into Trisha's, because my first boyfriend called me Trish. So it's perfect.
Thank you, Tricia.
Thank you
for joining me today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.